Alright, hello, welcome back everybody. PayPal and Patreon are down below if you want to support me, only do so if you actually can. Also, as always, if you want access to any of the graphs used in this video or any of the other videos, a link to the Drive folder containing all of these is in the description and is free to access. Any support helps with the indefinite maintenance of those graphs and databases as well. And now, going through the monthly natural gas production levels updates. As we're nearing the halfway point of 2025, global natural gas production is roughly around 409 billion cubic feet per day, with the composition of that total being broken up in roughly descending order of the US, the largest natural gas producer, accounting for a bit less than a quarter of the global total. They've been undulating in the 110s, which is about where I expected it to sort of level off and wobble around in for a number of years before starting to go down towards the end of this decade. Recently, it's been fluctuating between 115 and 118 usually, with occasional jumps or spikes up to 120. This one being one of those, as last week it came in at 120 billion cubic feet per day. Russia, before invading Ukraine, averaged in the 70s, mid or upper 70s in terms of their production, having a decent fluctuation range between low points in the summer and high points in the winter. In the large absence of their European customer base, their production has thus had to contract to where they're averaging in the 60s instead of the 70s, and instead of the winter or early months of the year highs being up in the mid 80s, those highs are now up in the mid 70s instead, and the lows are down closer to 50 during the summer as demand gets negligible. And at that point during the summer months, Russia is barely meeting anything more than its own domestic consumption, which is around 47 or 48. So their latest data is their March data from a couple months ago, at which point they were just under 75 at 74.6. And in the consecutive ones, it should start coming down towards the summer low. Iran would otherwise be up in the upper 20s or even close to 30. However, over the last few years, as things have degraded internally, since they are kind of excluded from many markets, Russia was the one predominantly supplying them with oil and gas equipment, and Russia itself, the Russian oil industry was predominantly relying on outside stuff. And so now, over the last few years, that Russia has been largely cut off from stuff, it has not really been supplying Iran with as much as Iran needs. And so Iran has seen its gas production contract. China had gotten up to 24, but has had a sudden drop down to around 21, this time coming in at 20.9. Qatar, the peninsula nation in the Persian Gulf, is continuing to hold in the low 20s, this time coming in at 20.6. And over the next number of years or so, they will be bringing online 3 different expansions to the Pars gas field, that mega gas field under the seafloor of the Persian Gulf that still has over a quadrillion cubic feet of gas in it. And over the next 5 or 6 maybe years, they will be bringing their production up to about 30 billion cubic feet per day. Well, this time they came in at 20.6. Canada continuing to hold or fluctuate around 20 or so, this time coming in a bit under at 19.3. Australia continuing to hold around 15 or 16, this time coming in at 15.3 billion cubic feet per day. Norway has brought themselves up to between 12 and 13, this time coming in right down flat at 12 billion cubic feet per day. Saudi Arabia is continuing to bring their production up in a gradual creep, climbing from around 12 at the start of the year up to 12.1, and now, as we're entering summer, up to 12.2 billion cubic feet per day. Algeria, after a series of delays, is finally bringing online their expanded production capacity, this time coming in up at 11.1 billion cubic feet per day. Malaysia recently, with the startup of a few new offshore fields, has gotten up to closer to 8. This time they came back down a bit, coming in at 7.64. Turkmenistan, meanwhile, is starting to ebb down a bit after reaching a recent high, this time coming in at 7.5 billion cubic feet per day. Indonesia was previously higher, closer towards 10, but not quite up there. However, recently they have been falling down and are more around 6, this time coming in right at 6. However, they do have a number of new offshore gas fields that will be coming online in the next few years that will probably boost them back up to 7 or maybe 8. Nigeria, meanwhile, in present day, has gotten all the way up to averaging about 6, this time coming in at 6.23 billion cubic feet per day of gas production. Egypt was previously averaging about 6. However, because of both on some part field depletion and also on other part poor maintenance and lack of reinvestment, likely due to government corruption and redirection or embezzlement funneling of funds. So Egypt has seen their output degrade actually kind of quickly recently and has dropped all the way down to around 4, which is below their domestic consumption levels, which are usually between 5 and 6. Currently, they came in at 4.15 billion cubic feet per day. And as oil production and thus accompanying gas production from the Vaca Muerta shale in Argentina continues to grow, so too does the amount of time each year that their gas production spends above 5 billion cubic feet per day. Granted, they have been here before in the past, back with their conventional stuff. That was a few decades ago. This time in particular, they came in at 5.12 billion cubic feet per day. Azerbaijan has made it up to the 4 billion that they were capable of. They're going to be at 4 for the next while. They should be able to hold that for at least a decade or so. And this time they came in just under it at 3.96. Mexico used to be decently higher, and they even got up to 8 or 9 at one point, a peak that they rapidly plunged down from, and then had a more gradual or bumpy descent from that point on. Now they're down to usually around 3. This time, though, they're a bit decently down at 2.54. And the UK was once up around 10 somewhere. However, they have fallen, as has their oil production from the North Sea, all the way down to now averaging more around 3 billion cubic feet per day, this time coming in at 3.13. Meanwhile, their domestic consumption is usually around 7 or 8. All right, that's it for this one. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around and listening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. PayPal and Patreon are down there if you want to support me, and the YouTube membership button thing. The link to that drive folder with all the different kinds of graphs across every kind of subject is in the description. There's links to my photography stuff, to my blue sky. There's one in the top pinned comment to my cat's YouTube channel. May God bless and protect all of you, and I will see you all around next time.